question by Phil times, like
really?
Examples, situations.
Oh wow.
Examples from Tanakh.
I have to take a look.
Yeah. I already went through that.
Incredible.
I'm going to go through it again because
Review, right?
Yeah, take a look at it.
Let's take a look. All right, Rabbi, say good morning. Let's begin. Beautiful, beautiful Gemara ahead of us today. Our shir this morning is dedicated by Meir and Adina Schwartzbaum in honor of the yahrzeit of Naomi Malka Basra Falls, Zichrono Livracha. We hope that on the merit of our Talmud Torah, Hashem will have an aliyah and the family in Nechama. What's a new parak? New parak, new possibilities. Let's begin. Today's daf is Ayin Zayin. 77, we are picking up 76b at the Mishnah. Hatoda. So we'll say we're still again with some of these karbanos. Hatoda Haisa Ba'a Chamesh Se'in Yerushalmios. So we'll say, so the Toda would come from, remember again, last parak was very heavily focused on the. Now we're not finished with the Omer, we're still going to talk about it a little bit more. But at least for now we're transitioning a little bit to the Karban Toda. So remember again, the Karban Toda was offered up when one was delivered or extricated, saved from difficult life circumstances. Pretty much what we have today in the form of Birchas HaGomel. Right? So kind of like whenever you would go ahead and bench Gomel, those type of situations would be the same type of situations when you would go ahead and bring a Karban Toda. So Hatoda Haisa Ba'a Chamesh Se'in Yerushalmios. So the Toda would come from 5 sa'ah of wheat. Now what the Mishnah is going to focus on a little bit are the different forms of measurements that existed during the times of the Mishnah. Now I want to point out the Mishnah we're going to see different measurements. Interestingly enough, it's not a machlokes as to how much was brought for the mincha. It's just telling me different measurements ultimately gauged the amount of wheat necessary for the mincha in different ways. So the Toda would come from 5 se'in of wheat using Jerusalem measures, Yerushalmios, se'in Yerushalmios, shehein sheish midbarios, that were the equivalent to 6 desert measures of sin. So what it's just saying is people had different ways of measuring a sa'ah. So for our purposes, again, remember we already saw by the Omer, how many sa'ah of wheat are you harvesting for the Omer? 3 sa'ah of wheat. So first of all, you also see something very interesting. An Omer which only has to produce an isara on a flour gets 3 sa'ah of wheat. A Toda which produces 40 loaves, right, is getting 5 sa'ah of wheat. So remember the difference between that is, remember that the loaves have to be made from fine flour, but not necessarily as finely sifted flour as the Omer required. So it was 6 Jerusalem sin, which was the equivalent, 5 Jerusalem sin, which was the equivalent of 6 desert sin. Shtei ephos ha'efa, shalosh sin. Ultimately, again, so here the Mishnah is giving me more measurements. Shtei ephos ha'efa, shalosh sin. Esrin isaron asar lachametz va'as. So we'll say all of this, 2 ephos to the ephah, total of 3 sin, and ultimately again telling me that there were 20 isaron. So remember, out of 5 sa'ah, you made esrim isaron, 20 isaron, asar lachametz va'asar lematzah. 10 esronos used for chametz and 10 for matzah. Remember again, the loaves of the Karban Toda are divided up between matzah loaves and chametz loaves. I want to point out, matzah in this context doesn't mean matzah as we know it. Matzah just means a non-chametz loaf. Top of Ayin Zayin. Asar lachametz. So there were 10 isaron that were used for the chametz loaves. Isaron lachala, which tells you that there was 1 isaron, a flour, per loaf. Va'asar lematzah. And ultimately again, 10 isronos for matzah. So we'll say, we're just giving the breakdown. Total, so 5 sa'ah of wheat to yield a total of 20 isaron of flour, 10 esronos for the chametz loaves, 10 esronos for the matzah loaves. Ube matzah, And in matzah, we'll say there was a further breakdown. Shalosh minin chalos rikikin revucha. We'll say matzah was comprised of three types of loaves. What we call chalos, loaves, rikikin, wafers, and revucha. We'll say revucha, we're going to see something very interesting. Revucha was a type of loaf, but it was boiled, it was scalded before it was baked. Scalded before it was baked. So that's a bagel, right? So good. But I want to point out, we'll say now this is a chap. This is a non-chametz bagel. This is so it's only a matter of time till the Pesach caterers pick up on this one, right? There's got to be a so the Gemara says as follows: Nimtzu shlosha esronim ushlish lechol minumin. Therefore, we'll say it turns out that what for the matzah loaves. So remember again, for the matzah loaves, you have what? You have 10 loaves of matzah, 10 isaron, ultimately again of flour, 3 different types of loaves comprising the matzah family, and therefore it turns out that what? Shalosh esronim ushlish lechol minumin. You had 3 1/3 esronos per loaf in the matzah loaf. The shalosh chalos li isaron, and 3 chalos per isaron. Or I should say differently. I should say that 3 1/3 esronos per type of matzah, which then turns out that you are actually making 3 chalos, 3 loaves per isaron. Okay, ubimidi Yerushalmios hayu, and I will say if you were using the Jerusalem measures, the way you would use this was the way you would say it was. So hayu shloshim kav was a total of 30 kav, chamisha asar lachametz, v'chamisha asar lamazis. So I will say in the Jerusalem measures they weren't using esronos, rather they were using kavim. It turned out that you had a total of 30 kav, 15 kav for the chametz loaves, 15 kavs for the matzah loaves. Chamisha asar lachametz. There are 15 kavim for the chametz loaves. It turns out that what? There was 1.5 kav per loaf. Chamisha asar lamatzah. There were 15 kavim for the matzah. Ubematzah shlosh minin chalos. Ubematzah shlosh minin. And I will say in the matzah family, there were 3 different categories of matzos. What were they? Chalos, rikikin, urevucha. So we'll say so same thing. These are the 3 different types of loaves you had. Nimtzu chameshes kavin l'chol minumin. Therefore, I will say if you have a total of 15 kavin, remember again, you have a total of 15 kavin for the matzah loaves. Then what happens? You have to divide up that 15 kavin amongst the 3 different types of loaves in the matzah family. It turns out that what? Nimtzu chameshes kavin l'chol minumin. Turns out that you have 5 kav of flour for each type of loaf. Therefore, again, ushtei chalos lekav, and therefore it turns out that you're producing 2 chalos, 2 loaves per kav. So we'll say, so the Mishnah here, beautiful Mishnah, straightforward Mishnah, just telling me again the different measurements, ultimately again for the Todah. Important facts to remember over here is that the Todah was being made from 5 si'in, ultimately again of grain. Now whether si'in was the Jerusalem measure, the Midbarios measured it in kavim. Again, so really, I want to just point out again, no one's disagreeing over here about the amounts. What they're just talking about are the different places that use different forms of measurements. Ultimately, again, we saw in yesterday's daf already, you're producing 40 loaves for the carbon todah. And ultimately, again, well, actually, right now we're talking about 20 loaves for the carbon todah. Half of them will be matzah, half of them will be chametz. Good. Hatodah haisa Gemara. Hatodah haisa ba'a chamesh in Yerushalmios. So we'll say, so the Mishnah taught me that the todah came from 5 Jerusalem measures si'in. Right, chamesh si'in Yerushalmios. So nahani. So we'll say, so how do we know this? Now, what are we asking over here? What the Gemara is asking over here is that how do you know that 1 ephah is gimel si'in? That's really what the Gemara is asking over here. How do I know? Because remember again, sa'ah has been the measurement that we have been working with up until this point. So from where do I know that 1 ephah is 3 si'in? Amar Rav Chisda Damar Kra ha'ephah v'habas tochan echad yihiyah. So we'll say the Gemara quotes over here the pasuk from Yecheskel. Ha'ephah v'habas tochan echad yihiyah. The ephah and the bas tochan are one measurement. Okay, so the Gemara says, so ma bas shalosh si'in, just like a bas. So bas, by the way, is a measurement. So just like the bas is 3 si'in, af ephah shalosh si'in. So to the ephah ultimately again was 3 si'in as well. Ubas gufa minalan. And from where do where do we know that a bas is 3 se'in? Where do we know that from? Ilema midichsev laseis. So also here the Gemara quotes the pasuk. Still the same pasuk, by the way, from Yechezkel. So laseis maser hachomer habas vasiras hachomer haifa ela chomer yihye maskunto. So laseis is maser habas ifa. So the Gemara, I'm sorry, lasas as maser hachomer habas. So the ifa nami yaksiv vasiras hachomer haifa. So both say, so I don't understand, but the pasuk says the same thing ultimately by ifa. So how does that teach me about the bas? Ella chomer lo yedana kama. Rather, the reality is this measurement called the chomer, I actually don't know how much it is. Hachanami lo yedana kama. So too again from this pasuk, I can't really tell how much this particular measurement represents. Ella mehacha. Rather, I can learn it out from here. But say now the Gemara quotes the pasuk, another pasuk from Yechezkel. The chok hashemen. Habas Hashemen. So I'll read it to you from here. V'chol kashemen, habas Hashemen, ma'aser habas min hakar, aseres habatim chomer, ki aseres habatim chomer. So listen to this. So ma'aser habas min hakar, aseres habatim chomer, ki aseres habatim chomer. So we'll say, so listen to this. So Rashi points out, what we get from this pasuk is a series of measurement relationships. So we'll say, here's what we get. A bas equals, I should have really put this on the WhatsApp, but a bas represents 1/10 of a core. A core equals 30 sa'ah, and therefore again, ultimately again, if we put those two relationships together, so a bas equals 3 sa'ah. So we learn it out ultimately again from this pasuk. That bottom line is the bottom line that we're looking for. The relationship between the bas and the sa'ah. So 1 bas equals 3 regular sa'ah. Amr Shmuel. So good. So both say, so now ultimately what we've done is we've established that first statement in the Mishnah. Good. Amr Shmuel. In Mosifin al Amidos, well, this is actually a very interesting discussion. In Mosifin al Amidos, Yosef Mishasina both say, the amazing part is that these discussions sometimes seem so irrelevant to us. Right? There's something all the time dashing psukim in Yechezkel. I will say, but obviously, the Mishnah, we have to get to the bottom of this. Because remember, again, as we're going to see, for karbanos are a very precise science. Even though, again, we will see that by certain menachos, as we already saw, you do have a little bit of room to be able to bring a little bit more, a little bit less, but we have to know what the shiurim are. So here we go. Somer Shmuel. In Mosifin al Amidos, Yoser Mishasus. So Shmuel says, we'll say you cannot add on the measurements more than a sixth. More than a sixth. So, okay, so fine. We'll see what this means just a moment. V'lo ala matbea, Yoser Mishasus. We'll say, nor can you add on to the value of currency more than a sixth. V'hamistaker, lo yistaker yoser mishasos. And I will say somebody who's going ahead and what? Trying to go ahead and selling wares for profit. You cannot go ahead and quote unquote overcharge or raise your prices more than a sixth of the normative market going price. So I will say my timer. So what's the reason? So remember, what does this sound like? So this sounds like ultimately again the laws of Ona, right? Of overcharging. And I want to point something out very interesting over here. If you look at Rashi, regular Rashi, the Rashi on top. So it's Rashi almost right across from where we are in the Gemara. See that Rashi v'hamistaker ba'ochel nefesh. So it's actually interesting halacha. If you're a merchant, and I guess what we would call staple goods. Right, so if you're a merchant in staple goods, then what's the halacha? You may not overcharge by more than a sixth. So again, we have to see what we're referring to over here, because laws of Ona really applies to almost all types of movable goods. In fact, the only thing Ona really doesn't apply to is what? We actually learned this, what? Real estate. Excellent. Right, real estate, we learned this last week. So what's happening over here? My timer. So we'll say, what is the nature of this halacha? What is the nature of this halacha? That when it comes to measurements, you can't add on by more than a sixth. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says, "My taimo in mosifin alamidos yoser mishasos." So why is it ultimately again that you're not allowed to go ahead and add on to the measurements by more than a sixth? So the Gemara says, "I'll tell you, ilema mishum afkuetara." So Rabbi says, it's actually interesting. Afkuetara literally means inflation. If we're concerned that you're going to create an inflationary state. So look at Rashi. We'll say, look at Rashi Kisvei Yad on the bottom. So it's almost like point in the middle of the paragraph there of Rashi. It's actually very interesting. Kisha Magdil Hamidos, because you know what happens? if you increase the measurements. So if you increase the size of a measurement, if you increase the size of measurement more, maschil hashar lehisyaker. Now I will say, what happens if you go ahead and you increase the size of a measurement? I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say instead of a pound representing X amount of produce, X produce, you now change the definition of a pound. So a pound represents, instead of X, X plus Y. So we'll say, what's going to happen to the price of a pound? It goes up. Now, why does it go up? Because you're getting more produce. So it's logical that it goes up because you're getting, even though it's the same name, you're getting more for your money. So watch this. So if you go ahead and you increase the size of a measurement, so what ends up happening? The price ends up going up. Why? Because now you're getting more stuff, right? You're getting more stuff. So listen to this. So Demi she'enu yodea tosvei hamidos savar dera'av bali olam u'misyaker yosiros. Well, this is amazing. You see, we are so used to the age of instant communication, but watch this. So let's say in my town, we decide, you know what, we're going to increase the size of a pound. Pound is X, we're making it X plus Y. As a result, prices go up, logically, because you're getting more for your money, more for the pound. What happens? Merchants come from another city, and what do they see? In city A, a pound of dates costs $5, and in city B, that they just came to it costs $7. So we'll say, so what happens when you see dramatic price fluctuation? Ultimately, again, in produce, what do you assume? Shortage. What you assume is shortage. Well, the moment that you stoke the fears of ra'av, of famine, or of shortage, is ultimately, again, when the prices go crazy. So we'll say, so therefore, again, in an effort to avoid that, Chazal legislated, and they said you could add on to the size of a measure, but essentially it has to be negligible. It has to be less than a sixth, something that people could justify, a little bit of a swing factor from city to city. More than that, we're afraid that you're going to spark inflation. Actually, quite amazing. If that's the case, shesus namilo. If that's the case, but I should be. If I'm concerned about inflation and I'm concerned about sparking fears of famine, then ultimately, again, even less than a sixth should be problematic. Elamishumon no. Rather, the Gemara says no. This is actually not about famine, but rather, again, this is about overcharging. This is the laws of ona, overcharging. To which the Gemara says, Elamishumon no ki hechi de lo lehavi bittul mekach. Because we'll say ultimately again, the Mishnah pretty much, the Bryce over is just restating the laws of Ona. Laws of Ona saying you could overcharge, or you could vary your price up to a sixth, but a sixth or more ultimately again, or more than a sixth, ultimately negates the sale. So we're talking about the laws of Ona. V'hamarava. 1 second, the laws of Ona, that doesn't apply here. I'll tell you why. V'hamarava. Chol davar shemido mishkal shemishkal sheminyan afilu pachos mikidei Ona chozer. We'll say we actually saw this last week. If you remember again, the laws of Ona'ah, Rabbosai, do not apply to anything that is sold b'mida, mishkal, uminyan. Which means, Rabbosai, something that is sold by a specific number or by specific weight, right, or by specific measure, the laws of Ona'ah do not apply. Rabbosai, why is that? Meaning what it's saying is like this. If I go ahead and I go to Reuven and say, Reuven, I'm buying a pound of dates. And then it turns out that's what? Reuven sells me 0.96 pounds of date, right? 0.98 pounds of date. So Reuven can't say, go back to Reuven and say, give me my money or give me the dates, right? Give me money or give me dates, right? So we'll say, so if I say that to Reuven can say to me, well, you know what, I went to Daf Yomi and there's less than a sixth, so I don't owe you anything. We'll say that doesn't apply to a transaction that is specifically governed by a specific weight or a specific number. When what you're buying is clearly quantifiable and associated with a specific price, the laws of Ona'ah don't apply. When does the laws of Ona'ah apply? When you're buying something that has a price, but that price is lav dafka tethered to some type of subjective reality, or I should say objective reality, but rather is part of this just general world of commerce, which is governed by a lot of subjectivity. That's what we recognize is some element of swing factor in prices. So if you're telling me that we're talking about the laws of Ona'ah over here, the laws of Ona'ah generally don't apply to produce transactions, because produce transactions generally, again, are midah, mishkal, and minyan. To which the Gemara says, you're right. Ela mishum tagra. Rather, again, this takana was put in place to protect the merchants. Why? Ki hechi delon limtie dione. Look at Rashi. I'm in the Rashi Kisveyad on the bottom, about 8 lines up from the bottom. Elamishon tagra delon nepnie ziana mepnei chamarim shekon letva bekvarim umocher beir shelo yafsid lefi shebnei kvarim mochrim lo b'mida rishona mida b'chamish shlam. So let's listen to this. This was enacted in order that the merchant should not lose his principal. We'll say, what does this mean? See, here's the issue. If we accept the fact that there can be price fluctuations between one city and another, the issue in general when it comes to the sale of produce, we'll say, is we're working under the assumption the markup on produce is relatively small, I guess, or at least it was. So therefore we'll say, how does a merchant make his money? Volume. See, here's the issue. The issue is, if merchant buys his wheat in city A and he brings it to city B to sell it, and city B has a higher price than city A, then what ends up happening? Right? He could lose everything. In fact, he could go into debt. In order to protect the merchant, what Chazal did is they capped the potential price differential between city A and city B to under a sixth. So like this, at least, even if he doesn't make money, at least what? He won't lose principal. To which the Gemara says, what? Di anahu delalimtie rav chalobai. By the way, merchants are much more interested in just not losing their, I should say, they're not just interested in not losing their principal. They come to city B, why? To make money. Look what the Gemara says. Zabin v'zavin tagra ikri. Do you think people just sell stuff so that they can be called a merchant? In other words, you think there's a covenant just being called a merchant? People become merchants because they want to make money. So it's nice that what you're doing is you're enacting a takana that prevents him from losing his shirt, so to speak, right? It prevents him from losing his principal. But he also can't make money in this circumstance. Rav Chisda, Shmuel kra ashkach v'darach. Rather, again, Rav Chisda says Shmuel found the pasuk and he darshened it. What's the pasuk? Hashekel esrim geira. So I'll say, the Gemara is quoting over here the pasuk from, again, today's a big day for Yecheskel. So I'll say, so the pasuk is Hashekel esrim geira, esrim shkalim, chamisha ve'esrim shkalim, asara ve'chamisha shekel hamana yihiyeh lachem. So we'll say, so in this pasuk, Yecheskel is giving relationships between different forms of currencies. So there's an issue over here. So Yecheskel says the shekel is 20 geira, 25 shkalim, right? Ultimately, again, all this leads to, it's a mana. So the Gemara says, mana masan va'arban havu. Ultimately, again, is a mana comprised of 24 shkalim. Not true, actually, I will say a mana is 23 shkalim, to which the Gemara says, shmamina tlas. Right? Ultimately, again, rather learn 3 things from here. Number 1, shmamina mana shal kodesh kafal haya. Plus, number 1, see that the size of a mana of the Beis Hamikdash was larger than a regular mana. Shmamina mosifin alamidos. Sifin will say that same in the Shmuel that we do have the ability to add on to measurements. Ve'in mosifin yoser mishasus. But when we add on, I will say what? We only add on up to a 6, like Shmuel's halacha. Ushmamina shesusa milavar. And I will say, learn out that when calculating the 6th, that 6th is added on from the outside. I will say, what does that mean? So if you want to calculate what a 6th means in these types of situations, what you effectively do is as follows. You divide the value of the item, or divide the measure into 5, right? And take 1/5 and add that on. That's the 6th. So the 6th, essentially, so if you want to calculate the 6th, is essentially 6/5 of the item. So I'll say that's so, as opposed to, there are different ways of coming up with the 6th. Milavar means divide it into 5, divide it by 5, add on 1 more 5th. That's your 6th part. So it's not quote unquote a 6th of the, it's an additional 5th of the item added onto the value on the outside. Good. So Ravina says our Mishnah seems to support this idea as well. Diktani Toda Haisaba'a Chamesh in Yerushalmios Shein Sheish Midbarios. We'll say you can see this ultimately in the statement of the Gemara that the Toda would come from 5 Jerusalem Se'in, that ultimately again were 6 Midbarios. So you see again in the relationship over here between the Yerushalmios and the Midbarios backs up these 3 assertions that we just made. Shmamina, indeed these statements are true. So we'll say, so again, halacha l'maisa, we actually accept some of these premises of Shmuel, namely this idea that the measurements could vary up to a 6th. Ultimately, again, that 6th is calculated in milabar. But again, once again, we begin to see that pretty much for our purposes, the only tie-in that this had in our Mishnah is that now we begin to understand the differences in the measurements between the Jerusalem measurements and the Midbarios measurements. If you actually take a look at the last Rashi, the top part of Rashi says, Masnisin amideka dishesusa milavar. So I will say this relationship ultimately again between the Jerusalem Si'in and the Midbarios Si'in is the difference between the Shesusa, a sixth, and we see from here that ultimately, again, that sixth is added on to the outside value, which I will say for our purposes means you take the value, divide it by 5, and add an extra fifth. Beautiful. Mishnah Amud Beis. What's a lot to do? Mikulam hayanot el echad me'asara. So we'll say I have all of the loaves. I have all of the loaves of the Toda. So what do? So we'll say, remember, I would take one loaf from the 10. So mikulam, we'll say, remember again, you had 4 different types of loaves, 10 types of each loaf. So therefore, I will say, or I should say, that was the wrong way to say it. 4 different types, 10 loaves of each type. So therefore, what did I do? I took one loaf per type, one loaf from each group as the truma for the Kohen. Mikulam hayanota echad me'asar truma. Shneimar vehikriv mimenu echad mikol karban truma la'Hashem. Echad shelo yito. So echad shelo yito pro. So we'll say, what does this teach me? Pasuk says, take one. One means you give a whole loaf of truma to the Kohen, not a piece of a loaf. Mikol karban, from every carbon, shukol karbanos of shavos. We'll see what this means in the Gemara, that ultimately, again, all of the karbanos, or all of the loaves, should be the same. Shelo yital mi karban al chavero. We'll say what that means is, you cannot take from one loaf type on its other, which Rabbi means, and this is actually very important. So halacha l'maisa, what the Mishnah is teaching me is, I have ultimately 40 loaves, 10 loaves of each different type. Now remember again, we know what our different types are. What are the different types? We have 1 type of chametz loaves, 3 types of matzah loaves, as we've seen. You gave truma to the Kohen, 1 loaf from each group. The Gemara is darshaning the pasuk over here. Vehikriv mimenu, right? Echad lo yital pros. You can't take a piece of a loaf, a whole loaf. Mikal karban shu karban shavos, which means what? You will say you can't take 2 loaves from one type and no loaves from the other type. There has to be 1 loaf from each type of challah. The Gemara says, "Lakoin azorik es dam shlamim lo yihiyeh." So you give this to the Kohen, ultimately again, who's going in and offering up the carbon. Vashar necha labailim. And I will say the rest of the loaves are eaten by the owner. So 4 loaves of the 40 go to the Kohanim. That's their truma. The remaining 36 loaves consumed by the Jewish owner. Tan Rabbanon. Vikriv mimenu mina mechuber. It's actually very interesting. When it says vikriv mimenu, you shall offer from it mina mechuber. What does mina mechuber mean? This is actually interesting. Means that the loaves. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi on top. Mina mechuber dibainan sheyu kol achalos biyachad b'shas truma. So the way you take truma of the loaves is you have all 10 loaves together, like in one receptacle together, and you take out one of the loaves and give that to the Kohen. Echad shel yital pros. When the pasuk says echad, it means you can't take a piece of a loaf. Rather, you have to give the Kohen a whole loaf. Mikol karban shu kol karbanos shavos. What does it mean? Mikol karbanos. That's the pasuk. That all of the karbanos should be the same. What does that mean? Shlo yital min karban al chaveiro. Ultimately, again, you should not take from one type of loaf on another. So this is actually very important. So it's 1 loaf per group. So for example, you can't take 2 chametz loaves and therefore take 1 less from the matzah group. Or you can't take 2 revucha and not take 1 rakik. Rather, it has to be 1 loaf from every single type. So the Gemara says, Truma Lashem, when the pasuk says Truma Lashem, Eini Yodeh Mikamehi. I don't know. So say, here's what I know. Here's what's fascinating. The pasuk says Truma Lashem. I have to take a truma from the loaves of the Toad and give it to the Kohen. What's the problem? I don't know how much truma is. What does that number mean in actuality? So the Gemara says, I'll tell you. Harini Dan, Ne'emar kan truma, v'ne'emar b'trumas meiser truma. Rabbi say it says truma over here by the carbon toda, and it says by trumas meiser. What's trumas meiser? Trumas meiser is the portion that the Kohen goes in and separates from his own meiser. The Levi gets meiser. He has to separate out trumas meiser for the Kohen. So it's by trumas meiser, truma. Ma'ala halon echad me'asara. Rabbi say just like trumas meiser is 1/10. Afkan me'asara. So too over here by the carbon toda loaves, it's also going to be 1/10, right? One, I should say, one of every 10 loaves. So the Gemara says, oh, kelecha l'derechzu, or maybe you'll say a little bit differently. Ne'emar kan truma, ve'ne'emar bebikurim truma. Both it says over here by toda the word truma, and it says by bikurim truma. We'll say first fruits truma. So I could say we'll say first wide line ayin zayin amud days. Mal halon ein lo shir. Both say no, the halacha is by truma. Excuse me, by bikurim. There's no shir by bikurim. Interesting halacha. There's no shir by bikurim. So maybe I say just like the truma of bikurim has no shir, afkan ein lo shir. So maybe I'll say that by what? Maybe the truma by lachmei toda. There's also no shir. There's also no shir. To which the Gemara says nira lemi dome. So I would tell you, let's see what lachmei toda are more comparable to. So danin truma she'in achareha truma, mi truma she'in achareh truma. So you will say, I would like to compare lachmei toda, where once you take truma, the loaves are no longer subject to any further tithe. I would like to compare that to something else which after it is tithed no longer has any kind of tithe, like trumas meiser. Ve'eni done va'al yochiach bikurim sheyesh acharehen truma. But I will say to compare lachmei toda to bikurim, here's the difference. I will say, once you bring bikurim, what's the status of that produce? That produce is still subject to a whole bunch. Remember again, bikurim is only the first fruits. The crop is still going to be subject to a whole variety of other tithing obligations. Therefore, again, I will say, I would rather compare lachmei toda, where once you take the truma from lachmei toda, then what? I will say, then what? You're done. You're finished. I would rather compare that to another tithing situation, where once you tithe it, you're finished. What's another example of once you tithe, you're finished? Trumas meiser. Once the Levi separates out the truma from his meiser, then what? We're done. We're done. Therefore, I'll say just like trumas meiser is a 10th, so too over here by lachmei toda will also be a 10th. One from every grouping of 10 loaves will be given to the Kohen. Okay, lecha l'derechzu. Or maybe you want to make a different kind of argument. Danin truma necheles makom kadosh. Maybe I should compare the type of truma that is eaten in a sanctified place, the Beis Hamikdash, which Rabbi says the lachmei toda, and I'll compare that ultimately again to a truma that's eaten by Makom Kadosh, which is what? Which is bikurim, which are also consumed in the Beis Hamikdash. V'al tochiach trumas meiser. Maybe I shouldn't be able to go ahead and compare it to trumas meiser. Shene echeles bechol makom, which Rabbi says is consumed anywhere. Remember again, trumas meiser need not be consumed in the Beis Hamikdash. Therefore, Talmud Lomar mimenu truma laHashem. Therefore, the pasuk says, from it. This is by the lachmei toda. From it shall you take a truma laHashem. Uksiv b'trumas meiser mimenu truma l'gzeir shava lamadu l'truma shete echad me'asara. So it turns out that halacha l'maisa we actually have a gzeir shava between lachmei toda and trumas meiser to teach me that what? Just as trumas meiser is what? 1/10, so too again the truma from lachmei toda will also be 1/10. One loaf from every 10, from every grouping of 10, is given to the Kohen. Aval ini yodea mikama hichala. But I will say, what I don't know is how much soles, how much flour, how much fine flour goes into each loaf of the carbon toda. Saharini dan. I think it could mean another gzeir shama. Ne'emar kan lechem. It says over here by lachmei toda the word lechem. V'ne'emar lahalon b'shtei lechem lechem. And by shtei lechem, I will say it also says lechem. So it says lechem over here by lachmei toda. It says lechem ultimately again by shtei lechem. Ma lahalon isaron right lechala. Just like over here I will say, just like by shtei lechem, it's one isaron per loaf. Afkan isaron lechala. So too I will say by lachmei toda also say one isaron per loaf. Okay, lechala derech zu. Or maybe I'll say a little bit differently. Ne'emar kan lechem. It says over here by lachmei toda lechem v'ne'emar b'lechem aponim lechem, and by lechem aponim it also says the word lechem. Ma lahalon shnei esronos. Just like by lechem aponim it's what? 2 esronos. Afkan shnei esronos. So too I will say by what? So too I'll say over here by lachmei toda that it's also 2 esronos. To which the Gemara says, so which is the limud? Nira lemid domin danin. So or I should say nira lemid domin. To what I will say are the lachmei toda more comparable? So I would say danin mincha haba chametz imazevach mi mincha haba chametz imazevach. I will say I would ultimately learn out a case of a chametz offering that is brought together with a carbon from another chametz offering that is brought together with a carbon, which Rabbi say is what? Meaning, so carbon toda has loaves which are chametz that are what? That are brought together with a carbon. Shtei alechem is chametz and is brought together with a carbon. Va'al yochiach lechem aponim, and I won't learn out from lechem aponim she'ino ba chametz imazevach, which Rabbi say ultimately what? Does not come chametz. A, the lechem aponim is not chametz. B, it's not brought together with a carbon. Or maybe I'll go ahead and what? Learn it out in a different way, and I'll say, Danin mincha ba me'aretz v'chutza la'aretz min ha'chadash u'min ha'yashan. I'll learn out, Rabbi say, lachmei toda, which is brought what? From grain, that is from Eretz Yisrael, not from Eretz Yisrael, achutz la'aretz, from chadash, from yashan, and I'll learn out from another mincha, haba me'aretz u'michutza la'aretz min ha'chadash u'min ha'yashan. I will say maybe I shouldn't learn it out. Now I will say that's lechem aponim. So lechem aponim I will say is brought from grain in Eretz Yisrael, outside of Eretz Yisrael, chadash, yashan. But maybe I shouldn't learn out lachmei toda from shtei halechem. That's what she'ein baos ela min hachadash u'min haaretz. We'll say shtei halechem. We'll say is only brought from chadash and what? Only brought from produce in Eretz Yisrael. Talmud lomar mimoshvo seichem taviu lechem tenufa shtayim. Shein Talmud lomar taviu. The pasuk doesn't need to say taviu. Ma Talmud lomar taviu. Why does the pasuk say you should bring it? Shekol masha atamevi mimakom acher harehu kazeh. The Rabbi say the pasuk, the extra taviu, teaches me that ultimately, again, whatever other carbon I bring in a different context shall be similar to this one. Harehu kazeh ma lahalon isaron lechala. Just like Rabbi say by shtei halechem, ultimately, again, it is one isaron per loaf. Afkan isaron lechala. So it's Rabbi say by lachmei toda. Well, by lachmei toda, it'll also be one isaron per loaf. So Rabbi say, so it appears that ultimately, again, we are learning out lachmei toda from a ribui in the pasuk by shtei halechem. The teaching that just like shtei halechem ultimately is one isaron per loaf, so to lachmei toda will be one isaron per loaf. Imal lahalon shnei asronos afkan shnei asronos. But why don't I say that just like ultimately again by the lechem aponim it's 2 esronos, so to over here should also be 2 esronos. Talmud lomar tihiyena. Ultimately again, therefore the pasuk says tihiyena. Both say tihiyena means that's a din ultimately again by the lechem aponim, not by anything else. Lamadnu asara lechametz, asara lematzah minai. So we'll say, so now I know that there are 10 esronos for the chametz loaves. How do I know that there are 10 esronos for the matzah loaves? Talmud lomar al chalos lechem chametz. So we'll say, so the pasuk over here says, quoting over here, the pasuk says, al chalos lechem chametz yakriv karbano al zevach todav shlamav. So therefore again, lamanu asar al chalos lechem chametz neged chametz have matzah. So we'll say essentially what we learn over here is whatever is true by the chametz loaves, the same halacha will be by the corresponding matzah loaves. Nimtzu esronim esestrim esronos lachmei toda. So we'll say ultimately again, therefore, what do we learn now? If we put all this together, we have 20 esronos that go for the lachmei toda, asar lechametz, va'asar lematzah. 10 esronos for the chametz, 10 esronos for the matzah. Yachol asar shebematzah. Lo yukul elamim menachos. So we'll say based on this, I might have thought that by the matzah I will say that maybe all 10 isaron have to be of one type. Because remember again, by the chametz loaves, they're all one type of loaf. Maybe I say by the matzah loaves, it's also all one type of loaf. Talmud lomar im al toda yakrivenu v'hikriv al zevach hatoda chalos matzos balulos b'shemen urikike matzos mishuchim b'shemen soles murbachos nimtzu shlosha esronim mushlish l'chol. So we'll say, so the pasuk explicitly says that by the matzos you're going to have 3 different types of loaves. You're going to have chalos, rikikin, and murbachas. Therefore, it turns out that what nimtzu shalosh esronim mushlish l'chol minumin. Therefore, we'll say it turns out that I have a total of 10 sin of flour for the chametz loaves. 3 different types of categories, and therefore 3.5 and 1/3 sin per each type of loaf in the matzah family. Nimtzu shlosh esronos ushlish l'chol minumin ushalosh chalos lisaron. Therefore, again, 3 chalos per isaron. V'nimtzu lachmei toda arboim. And then we'll say, if you bring this all together, it turns out that what? We have 40 loaves for the lachmei toda. No talmehen, so we'll say 40 loaves for the lachmei toda, so half of which are chametz, half of which are matzah. The matzah family comprised of 3 different types of loaves. V'nota mehen arba v'nosein lakohen. I take 4 loaves, Rabbi, which is 1 loaf per category. I give that to the kohen. V'ashar ne'echal lakohanim. And ultimately, again, the rest is consumed by the kohanim. Amar mar vikir v'menu and mechuber. So I'll say ultimately, again, Mar said we go ahead and we offer it up from the mechuber. Now I'll say what does mechuber mean? Mechuber means that when taking the truma from the group, what do? You put all of the loaves together, and you take the truma loaf from them when they're all together. So we'll say, now the way the Gemara is dashing is like this. By carbon told to the pasuk says the word mimenu. What does mimenu mean? We're dashing, that means is that you have all of the loaves together in one receptacle, and then you go out and you take the truma loaf when all of the loaves are together. So what that seems to be telling me is that whenever you see the word mimenu always means what? You only separate out when it's together as a unit. Okay, so it says the Gemara, by the way, it uses the same lashon by chatos. By chatos it says, ve'es kol chelbo yorim et mimenu. You have to take all of the chilev, all of the fat by the chatos, and raise it up on the mizbeach. Hasam mai mechuber ika. I will say, what's the mechuber element over here by this carbon? Kid Rav Chisda Amar Avimi. Then Rav Chisda Amar Avimi. Shelo yinatach basar kodem sheyital emurin. We'll say what that means is, we learn out of by chatos, is that you should not cut up the meat before you go ahead and you offer up the emurin. So we'll say ultimately again, by the chatos, what it means is as follows. The mechuber aspect is keep the meat intact until you offer up all of the emurin. Only once you offer up all the sacrificial parts should you go ahead and cut up the meat. Amar mar, ne'emar kan. It says here by lachmei toda truma, v'ne'emar b'truma smeiser truma. So we'll say ultimately again, it says by lachmei toda truma, and it says by truma smeiser truma. I v'neilif mi trumas midyan. So we'll say, remember again. So that was actually very important for us because remember, that's how we learned out. How did we learn out that you take 1 loaf from every group of 10, 1/10 of those? Where did we learn that out from? We learned that from the Gzeir Shava, from Lachmei Toda to Trumas Meiser. I v'neilif mi trumas midyan. So we'll say, why don't I learn out truma from trumas midyan? Then I will say, now what happened by midyan? If you take a look at Rashi, look at Rashi Kisvei Yad on the bottom. Mitrumas midyan. Rashi says nefesh achas mechamesh mios. I will say the truma of trumas midyan was 1/500th. So why don't you go ahead and learn Gzeir Shava? Between lachmei toda and trumas midyan, and say that what? Just as trumas midyan was 1/500th. So maybe again the truma by lachmei toda is also 1/500th. To which the Gemara says very simply, Donin truma hanoheges ledoros. Ultimately, again, mi truma hanoheges ledoros. Va'tochiach trumas midyan sheinoheges ledoros. It's very simple. Trumas midyan, Rabbi, was a one-time event. You don't learn out ongoing truma obligations from a one-time event. So we learn out truma obligations that are ongoing from other ongoing truma obligations, but you don't learn out ongoing truma obligations from what? From one-time events. I've named Neilov mitrumas chala. So also, why don't you learn it out? Why don't you learn out the truma obligation of lachmei toda from the truma obligation ultimately of chala? But say, look at Rashi for just a moment. Rashi kisvei on the bottom. Trumas chala the kaimalon echad nechav dalet. I will say the truma of chala, the obligation of taking chala, is 1/24th. So why don't I say just like the taking of chala is 1/24th of the total, so the truma of lachmei toda should also be 1/24th. And I will say one can make a cogent argument about that because remember both of them are dealing mamish with chalas. To which the Gemara says, Tanadvei Rabbi Shmuel donin davar shene'emar bo mimenu truma Hashem, mi davar shene'emar bo mimenu truma la Hashem. So we'll say we're looking for the same phraseology. It says mimenu truma la Hashem by lachmei toda. It says mimenu truma la Hashem by what? By trumas meiser. La fuke trumas chala de lo ne'emar bo mimenu truma la Hashem. Rabbi said this comes to exclude what? The case ultimately again of trumas meiser where it does not say truma la Hashem. Fine. We'll say one more piece and then we'll stop for today. Boy Rava. Trumas lachmei toda. Chayaven ala misa v'chomesh. Oin chayaven ala misa v'chomesh. So we'll listen to this. So the Trumas lachmei toda. So now we move past. So now we'll say. So it becomes clear. Where did we learn out the Truma obligation for lachmei toda from? We learn it from Trumas Meiser. Just like Trumas Meiser is a tenth, so to lachmei toda. Ultimately, again, what is separated is going to be a tenth. So we'll say here's the shaila. Let's say again the separated Truma from the lachmei toda. So I go ahead and I separate out a loaf from lachmei toda, one loaf per 10. So we'll say, so the shaila is as follows. If I go ahead and I consume that loaf that was separated ultimately again for the Kohen, and I consume it, am I chayiv misa, if I do it intentionally, like one who goes ahead and eats truma, or a chomesh, if I go ahead and I do it unintentionally, am I chayiv to go ahead and compensate the Beis HaMikdash for an extra fifth, or not? Kevan de iskish l'trumas meiser k'trumas meiser dami. So do I say that since it's learned out from trumas meiser, therefore it shares all of the same halachos as trumas meiser? O dilma, or perhaps I'll say, so the Gemara, O dilma, bo v'chamishi so. Or I will say, ultimately, again, halacha l'maisa, it's only by real truma. By truma meiser that it says bo v'chamishi so. Miet rachmana. Ultimately, again, maybe the pasuk excludes ultimately the lachmei toda from this din of chomesh and from this din ultimately again of misa if it's done intentionally midamas or ina midamas. Similarly again about saying, does it create demai or not? Now damas actually dimua means if it gets mixed in, will it go ahead and invalidate the mixture or not? To which the Gemara answers to both of those questions, teku. So we'll say both of these questions in terms of whether or not there's a chiyuv of misa or chomesh on the truma from lachmei toda. Does it create a dimua situation if it gets mixed in with other chulin items? Ultimately, again, teku. All right, we'll stop over for today. I'll record the parsha thought to Mirz Hashem after that.
Okay, please remove all your belongings. The room is going to be broken down.
How are you?
Very well. Oh. My wife is slated to leave there's several challenges mounting. Whether they say it's being serviced. So we're not sure if it's going to be available.
Okay.
So I know of a very I've heard of a very it's out there Friday afternoon. Does that exist in Baltimore? No.
That exists when a person is not going to have access to a mikvah for some amount of time going forward.
But if it's
a question of just pushing it to the next night,
no.
Check out to it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's. I've heard people using this also, like this. But mamish, it's brought down in halacha.
Right.
But let's say a person's traveling, so I'm not going to have access to a mikvah 4 more days, 2 more days, 3 more days.